So I'm going to talk about the iPhone 20, and this is an article I put together because I wanted an excuse to get a free media pass at South by Southwest. So I'm going over there in March. They said it's $1,500. I was like, is there another way? So you can be a journalist. So I was like, all right, how do you become a journalist? You write articles, and then when you publish it, you put it on Medium. So if you guys want to check it out, I'll put the link on the meetup, and it's basically just a clickbait title called iPhone 20, because everyone loves an iPhone. A roadmap for how smart devices could integrate with our bodies by 2029, and how Apple can stay relevant over the next decade. So this was written about a month ago, and this is when Apple's share price was tanking. So I wanted to pick up on that sort of clickbait element. So you got that clicker there, is that?
It's too easy.
Okay. So this is the start of the article going, well, we're pretty used to a new iPhone every year, always better chips, better camera, always better specs. And it's just crazy to think that 10 years ago, mainstream smartphones didn't quite exist until the iPhone came around. You had smartphones, but you don't really see everyone on the street with them. And now we're pretty much just zombies looking down on our phones everywhere. And then Android came in, etc. But this is the smartphone market share in China. So Steve Jobs was saying in his latest letter to shareholders that in China they're not doing so well because they're blaming on the economic activity. And surely there is a 20% downturn in the smartphone market year on year. But when you look at the numbers, when you look at the market share itself, it's not just the smartphone market. It's really just Apple. The only competitors like Oppo and Huawei, right, and Xiaomi. What's the other one over here? Yeah, Vivo as well. So these guys haven't even gone that mainstream into the Western countries. You might have seen some of the Oppo ads on the billboards, but they're coming. And in China, they are dominating. So these guys all earn about 20 to 30% of market share, whereas Apple, whereas Apple only has about 5 to 8 to 10%. And you can see these little red ones down here. It peaks every time there's a new iPhone, and then it just trails back down again, and peaks again, and trails down again. So there's luxury goods market is probably where their target market is.
There was just some news in Australia today about the new cost, like 16, 17, 800, like I think 2100 for the highest one. There's actually just had a 10% drop in iPhone sales because of where they're starting to reach.
And it's still the same. I mean, they're just to maintain revenues, they increase the price and selling less. So that's how they do it. So Steve Jobs is like, well, look, I've got a plan, right? I'm pretty worried that 56% of my revenues are coming from iPhones, and actually last year it was 70% of the entire Apple revenue coming from iPhones. So this is a pretty big exposure. So he says to his shareholders that, look, we can't change macroeconomic conditions, but we are undertaking and accelerating our other initiatives to improve our results. One such initiative is making it simple to trade in a phone in our stores, finance the purchase at a time, and get help transferring data from the current to the new phone. So yeah, trading program. So that already exists. But I think he's thinking that it's not marketed well enough, so people don't quite understand you can sell your iPhone in exchange for a cheaper new phone. But hopefully those are just the rumblings of a CEO keeping their cards close to the pocket. Because if that's his strategy, then yeah, I think Apple is pretty good. But Apple has proven itself over time and again, that whenever their innovations reach that sort of plateau, they release the next paradigm. They're very good at finding that optimal moment. So hopefully, fingers crossed, and if they follow this roadmap, they might stay relevant by the year 2029. All right, so let's begin.
HomePod went boom.
HomePod doesn't integrate. I wrote another article so I can get into Mobile World Congress. It's called The Platform Wars. So I'll give a talk about that probably next time. But yeah, integration, that's why I didn't say fully integrate with your bodies, because people were like, Apple doesn't integrate with anything. How can it integrate with the body? So,
Do you know why? Why they're still refusing?
They want to lock you into the ecosystem. It's walled garden.
But they'd sell more iPhones, Apple Watches, if they made the Android app for it.
Yeah, they would, but they want to sell the services, which want to be on iOS. Wow, what does that mean?
They did it with iTunes, but they just don't want to do it with the watches and everything.
They're pretty much the North Korea of technology. Right? They just want to keep everything in-house and So 2019. Okay, so this is all the leaks and the publications are out already. You know, you're going to get that ugly ass camera, which is going to create great augmented reality apparently. But from a design perspective, Steve Jobs is rolling in his grave. Right? Look at this. Look at that. It's ridiculous. There's going to be a better chip, as you expect. You know, double the speed probably. It's the A13 Bionic. There's going to be a better front-facing camera. Hopefully the notch is also going to be reduced, right? Can I get a hell yeah? Hopefully it just disappears altogether, but right now we're getting a smaller notch. And we got AirPods 2 coming out. That's probably the best innovation since Steve Jobs came out. And then there's the wireless charging pads. So nothing that exciting for 2019. 2020, right? Tokyo 2020. We're talking about the Olympics. So everyone's got their 2020 strategy. Who doesn't work for an organization that doesn't have a 2020 strategy? So, that's pretty blindsided, if I may say, right? So the benefit of 2020 is that you can put great slides together, put a great strategy together, get remunerated before that, and do a golden parachute out.
When do we get the transhumanism going?
That's what we need. That's what the Paralympics are going to be about. Right?
Yeah,
So it's going to be really interesting to see the contenders for the Paralympics.
Has it changed it? Meta Olympics.
Yeah. And then what Shane's going to be talking about, you know, when you legalize all the drugs, so the Russians can actually compete again, and then we can actually have just to see, you know, what the human limitations are when you integrate with technology and other drugs and enhancements. Right. But 2020 is going to be interesting. So this is the promised land of Magic Leap. This is their product, and it just goes to show the hype that's generated with your startup or a multi-billion-dollar company. You need that design element to actually make it right. And I think Apple is one of those rare cases where they know how to put the hardware, the software, the entire experience to actually make you want to wear something as opposed to make you put something on and just for the functionality. Because this is the meme of what that guy looks like, right? This is a spider on the right-hand side, and it's sort of, it sums up exactly the design elements of the Magic Leap 1. And so you compare that to something like this, which doesn't even feel like technology because it's Burberry. It's something that's sort of trendy and luxury good that you want to wear. And because you've got that design that people show that it's got a smart pair of glasses, you paid a lot of money for it, then people actually want to put this on. And the functionality comes as a side note. Exactly. 5G is coming in 2020, so I mean there are already 5G phones out there, but 2020 is when Apple's probably going to adopt it. And you know, if you look at the trajectory of the different generations, 2G was 1991, 3G, you know, boosted a little bit, and then 4G came out, and then bam, like that's like real exponential growth in how much data we can transfer, and the applications that came with it. So you start with SMS in 2G, you start with some web internet-ish things in 3G, but then now 4G, just like a computer. Well, 5G is going to be, you know, 3D, ultra high definition, combined with virtual reality and augmented reality to enable devices to talk to each other to the extent that you can make those devices mainstream, untethered, and you won't need to store anything locally because everything will be transferring in that real time. So those are the promises of 5G. I'm not sure about the health concerns. I think that's been debunked, but you know, let's just use these humans as experiments where we're all part of biohacking community, right? So we can test it out and see how it goes. But basically, it's going to enable just about the next paradigm of communications. All right. Okay, so I'm going to put 2021, 2022, and 2023 in a band because it's hard to predict in that sort of far out range. But this is the class of the 2021 to 2023. Foldables, I mean, that's already out, but Apple's going to adopt it in 2021. Yeah, this is on the left-hand side, the Westworld tablet. You know, they're talking about each of the hosts and the metrics on that foldable. And on the right-hand side is what you saw in CES 2019. This is from one of the side companies, but Samsung also released images and leaks, their own leaks of the foldable phone. We're also going to look at integrations with companies like Cochlear. So Cochlear is helping the people that have hearing impediments hear better, and these devices are essentially sort of integrated with the audio nerve system in your brain. So this is already sort of having an input mechanism from real life audio into your digital, and then into your brain. And so there's already apps out there that help people with cochlear implants, so you can listen to your music really well. You don't have to go through that input-output mechanism that goes directly transferred into your brain, so digital and then into human. And what's that evolution going to be like? Because by 2023 we're looking at potential enhancements to human hearing beyond the normal person. Because right now, they can help people hear as well as everyone else. By 2023, it might help you hear what the other side of the room might hear, what Steve and Chanti are talking about right now, for example. Or could you also hear other bands of communication? Because this is the human range of hearing. A little stick figure there, and the one below it is the baby hearing. And then on top of that is the dog, the cat. At the bottom there is the whale, and then the dolphin, bird-woods, right? So these are all sort of different ranges, and like Leo was saying, that's your umbrella. That's their objective umbrellas, and if they were able to come together and talk about each other, that's their objective reality. But we're going to be able to tap into their objective realities and go, hey guys, we can hear what you're saying, right? So this is going to be interesting development. Another thing, Apple will probably adopt something what Google's already working on, which is the Project Soli. So Soli is almost like a little mini radar that can pick up tiny movements. So you'll be able to actually see based on movements in space and those tiny vibrations. So kind of like with Superman with X-ray vision, it's actually more hearing the vibrations on the other side of the wall and then visualizing that. So it's going to be very good for military, very great for things like trying to pick up near field objects, and also any perturbations in sort of your surroundings. So if you're blind, you're able to use the vibrations to help you see. So that's another sensory input that can potentially help you see. And also give you superhuman powers, pretty much, right? You can pretty much see what else is going on in your vicinity. And then I move on to the next band, which is the class of 2024. You got Paris 2024, you got Made in China strategy due by 2025. Their strategy is essentially just to make everything in the world by 2025. And then 2026. So this is another band of 3 years gap. So full haptic suits, Steve's already got some. But Apple will probably come up with some just to help augment their existing virtual reality play. I forgot to mention that 2020 is when they have the AR glasses and also VR as well, so it just gives you that more immersive experience. And it's pretty much just vibrations that can replicate the sensations of touch. And so, you get shot by a bullet in the game, you feel like in real life. So just like that, Ready Player One game, this thing is actually out now called the Tesla Suit. And so it'll be perfected for Apple's to mass produce. And,
can you buy it now?
You can, yeah. You can pre-order. I think it's already out in CES convention, so you can actually test it out.
They look really good.
Yeah. And then I put in some, electromagnetic spectrum as well. So this is where people have, bionic eyes as well. Like you'll be able to see, just like the hearing ranges, there's also light ranges. We only see visible light and radio, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet X-rays, and gamma rays are invisible to us. So we'll be able to pick up on that as well. The animals can see that. And here is also what people can replicate through taste. So you can actually right now replicate different taste on your taste buds using that device, and you could actually just be eating rice and you can add something else. And what that means is, if you're a 5-star Michelin chef, instead of just cooking away and spending based on a time cost business model, you might just record the sensations of tasting your food and record that and put that onto the App Store so that you can monetize and make money while you sleep. So and then that'd be the Jamie Oliver pasta combination thing. So you can download and then tastes pretty good. I'm still hungry, but you can just eat some rice and fill it up. This is what you can do. So all the other senses of humanity. If you think about touch, eyes, right? We talked about hearing before, and then ultimately what we're trying to get to is thought. So this is sort of what Neuralink is trying to get to. Well, the first things that Neuralink is working on right now is a memory augmenter. So if you have Alzheimer's and you can't remember things, this will help you remember just by tapping in. And subcranial is a really nasty sounding word, and it is because it literally goes with below the cranium, which is your head, and it goes directly onto the brain. And I guess that way it gets better fidelity on the signals and also direct input eventually into the bloodstream. So
how does that go through to your brain? Sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, so neurons, just like how we talk about neural networks, but like an actual.
What I mean, does it pour into your brain?
Yeah, on the very
So we can get jacked in now.
Yeah, chips and wires. Yeah, they're doing it for the disabled right now, and companies like Facebook's F8 and Neuralink is another one. And we got also Kernel, the guy that's he spent $100 million developing these devices. DARPA initiatives. They pretty much.
Musk has got something as well, isn't it?
That's the one, Neuralink. Yeah.
Do you think we actually need to do the invasive?
It is invasive.
I mean, do you think by then we'll need that?
I think by then, hopefully the nanotech will be a lot easier to deal with. Rather than drilling in, you'll be able to just have ingested nanobots to communicate. But that's the crude version of it. And what it's enabling to do right now is helping people like paraplegics with locking syndrome type 10 words per minute. So you can just, through thought, type 10 words per minute, and then they're aiming for 100 words per minute over the next 2 to 5 years. So that means that it'll be just as good as people typing on their thumbs. And so, once you get there, well, why do we need our thumbs? We're just brain, right? So that's the ultimate aim of what Neuralink is trying to do. And that's what we'll get to between 2027, 28, and 2019. Once Elon's sort of settled his Mars colony, it's got 1 million people, and it's self-sufficient, he'll have time to actually come back to Earth and essentially run Apple, because by then, like Apple and Neuralink would be so much more valuable because it provides that sort of smart device integration, productivity gains, such sexiness to actually bring together. Potentially combining SpaceX, Tesla, and Boring Company, and they do need a new CEO. Like, come on, right? So he'll be, in his sort of chairman-y role, or new CEO, and just do that merger. So think different. What will then bring along is, okay, you can be fully immersed in the virtual reality, while Apple Care takes care of your body if you want. If we could just go on the subscription service, pay you $5 a month for storage, and they'll look after your body. Because they have that quantified self already, they essentially know all your senses, and then when we get to that brain-to-brain communication, you essentially can just let go as well.
At any point, does Apple come back into social, or even get really into it? Like the whole Facebook, Twitter, etc. world, like they have nothing.
Apple has the biggest social network out of all.
Which one?
For iMessage.
Oh, you mean the one that doesn't run on Android?
Yeah.
Fuck them.
That's it. And it's the biggest closed ecosystem, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but will they actually? Because no one's ever going to join if it's not massively open. Even Google Plus failed. Will Apple at some point go back into that world?
Openness now.
Of global social side. They have the whole iCloud, but it just barely touched and.
But like I said, that's iMessages. So when I was writing that platform wars article, I was like, all right, so Apple's pretty close as a walled garden, but what makes it so successful, and why is there it does feel like a social network because your messages appear blue if you're an iOS user to another iOS user. So as opposed to green when it's external, and you always feel a bit. I'm an iOS user. You always feel a bit xenophobic. If I can use that word from a technology perspective, because you're like, so I'm spending money to send a message to this guy, like if you went under an unlimited plan. But also, why doesn't this guy have AirDrop? Why doesn't my videos send faster and my messages take a while? There's that sort of walled garden that anyone external to that, it feels like it's a different country or it's a different jurisdiction.
Even every Apple user, or most, use other mechanisms to communicate, whether it be Facebook Messenger or whatever. You can't live inside iMessenger because
it's a
the entire Android world can't talk to you.
It's a different one.
So it'd be very stupid in business to cut yourself off like that.
Yeah, it's a very different social network. It's almost like a social network for people.
How is it social though? Like in Facebook, you got status updates and friends and photos and blah 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 blah. Twitter's you've got this and you follow it and hashtags. Instagram's you've got photos, Pinterest, all these other giant social networks. I'm not an iMessage user. It doesn't look like is it just like SMS for iPhones?
Have you tried add emojis?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Samsung's got better.
Yeah, Samsung's got better. Yeah.
There's
Actually,
there's nothing you can save to your iPhone memory like you can in Android. And iPhone, the ecosystem is built that the only way you save content, images, video, anything is through the API to Instagram. That's the same, like,
okay, no,
so they are meta social.
Does iMessage
social network.
does iMessage have any social aspect where you can follow people and
hang
everything?
on. iCloud photos, so family sharing. So it's
There's very limited family sharing. I've tried to do sharing on
but that's what I mean. Like they're going for that very niche, very close, intimate social tool. It's a
That's what I was wondering. That's what I was wondering. Do you think they'll come back to the more
it's a different
open
social.
global?
I don't think so. I don't think they need to because they've seen the mistakes that. So they're publicly saying that they don't want to play there using data as monetization. Right? They're the pro-privacy because they don't have that.
Do you
space
use
in the
Instagram?
first place. No, I don't.
Do you use Facebook?
I use Facebook.
Okay.
Okay, what do you think using if they do, which is being like seriously talked about by Netflix, do you think that'll make a big difference?
I think that will enhance their closed system. Yeah, I think it will enhance the way that people share because you're close. You share your Netflix shows, and they might not buy it because they'll probably think that they can do it better in terms of design and better production deals with Disney. So healthcare, pretty much look after your body, right? And while your brain is in the cloud. Kind of like what Brendan was saying last month, with the people at MIN was at the Australian project that decided to live in virtual reality. And so, the food will taste better because, it actually is better from signals to the brain perspective. You can replicate. And have you guys seen this scene from The Matrix? The guy's like, I choose The Matrix because, I've been eating all that shit in the real world and all this time. I prefer this. And just make sure I don't remember anything because ignorance is bliss. And so, what's going to be really important, so Apple, was talking about that privacy issue. It's going to be really important is that because Apple wants to maintain that it hasn't accessed your data when it does this, it can store everything locally, i.e. edge compute, so everything, your Face ID, your biometrics is stored locally on your device, on your phone right now. And for them to do any analytics across it, they need to be able to show that and publish it and do analytics on a population level. They need to show that they haven't actually accessed your data. Like they don't want to be able to breach your data, and you're not going to do that. So this is what
do you think there's a move for banning facial recognition and a whole bunch of things at the moment? It's starting in San Francisco at the moment with the actual government looking at all government banning and everything. If that breaks out, and that's going to, I think, be a little bit popular, they're not talking about corporates yet, but it's not going to be far behind. How do you think that'll affect, because Apple's huge on the whole Face ID, and do you think that'll affect them? The biometric data, you can't even use that anymore in Face.
It's a battle of convenience, and it's convenience and also being discontent as well. Like, because if you can, because all my passwords right now using Face ID are stored locally in that sense.
Do you think
I'm just saying, if I fall asleep and I don't, you can open my eye, you can lock into just about everything I do. But because of that, I don't have to worry about remembering every single password or use a password locker. And that's just the convenience factor. And I'm a transhumanist, but I've given in to that need.
So one of the opinions about it at the moment is it's actually going to be this huge dip where they're going to legislate against companies, and you'll have to read 27 pages of permissions. But because of that, we're going to go, fuck it, yes, but that will give the Apples so much more access because we've implicitly gone very deep about, yes, you can use this because I want the convenience, and that will actually make things extreme in what we've actually said, here, take it.
Yeah. And that's the sort of, I guess that's the battle, right? The platform wars when I wrote this article was like, all right, you got your Googles, you got your Facebooks, and then there's Apple, going at CES saying, look, what happens on your iPhone stays on your iPhone. That was their marketing plot. Because it was in Vegas and CES, right? So it's like, what happens on your iPhone But basically, they're trying to target the people that actually care about this as well. One, because they can't play against the Googles and the Facebook of the world, but two, they realize that eventually this is going to be more and more important. And which is why I raised this point about this zero knowledge proof issue. So this proving, it's a mathematical proof that you haven't actually breached the data in order to run things like a health score.
Looks like a blockchain.
It's one of the protocols, yeah.
I just have a little idea, but
Everyone.
if they implement this right to the point that we trust it a lot, just like what they've done with the Apple Pay, they've literally just kidnapped the world and gone, we were in charge. Imagine your average hospitals and going with the big Apple logo going, we're an Apple hospital, but you go there because it's got all your data and it's got everything about you. And if you go to an Apple hospital where they collect the clip, they'll have more information about you. They've already got it in front. You'll get seen quicker because you're an Apple Health hospital, approved hospital. It seems to fit very, very nicely with their path they're going on.
Yeah, it's the cult of that, right? Yeah. And because you remember that Jehovah's Witness case, where the person refused the blood transfusion, it's going to be that person that refused to go to a public hospital as opposed to Apple.
But it just seems hospital or bank. What's the difference? It seems to fit nicely.
It does, right? So Apple Healthcare is already out, so they just want to go, one step back. I've got to mention Apple Car as well, like that'll play in the ecosystem with 5G. But this zero knowledge proof, mathematical proof that there's no potential data breach liability, at the same time being run analytics, so you can have a health score to make sure that you're staying healthy all the time. But this will be really important when we're talking about brain-to-brain communication, because how do you prove someone hasn't breached your individuality when you've got brain-computer interfaces? No one's actually read your thoughts while just trying to help you optimize the way you're experiencing all these physical, touch, and visual, and all those senses. How do you make sure that data is not leaking out to the public? So yeah, zero knowledge proof plus the edge computing element of staying on the device, on your brain. That's potentially people will be interested in. And then we got quantum processors as well. So that's going to just dominate the entire debate for the rest of the Xing. But pretty much that can help you create better AI, help you create better drugs, and so that will also accelerate a lot of things. And that's why I think by 2029, that's the inflection point of potential artificial general intelligence, when we merge our human intelligence, because we've decoded it through our visuals, our thoughts, audio, our taste, insight. The machine learning takes in that data because it's got that feedback loop of what you're actually seeing and what your brain is perceiving that it's seeing. And that's going to create that positive accelerating feedback loop of machine learning to decode the human brain, accelerate it with quantum computers, and that's what they think. We're going to have Skynet. So that's right. But if you guys think there's potential areas of gaps, I really encourage you to read the article and make a comment, because it's constantly changing. Every day there's a new fact and something else to include. So really keen to get your thoughts. But thank you very much.
You've got an old bagel there, right?
That's it, right? Next
So,
5 minute break?
Yep, 5 minute break, everybody.
If you're wondering what all those QR codes are doing, you can pretty much scan these and go to the website. Yeah? There you go. There's the article there.
And
I lost it. Pardon?